All right, so get this. Okay. What if the guy, who made Twitter, Jack Dorsey, is also the mysterious creator of Bitcoin? We're going to look into this theory, and it's causing like a real stir in the crypto world. Now, I know some of you might not be like experts on Bitcoin. It's basically a digital currency, kind of like internet money. But the thing is, it was invented by this anonymous person, Satoshi Nakamoto, and no one knows who they are. So what we're talking about here isn't just money. It's a real-life mystery, like a detective story. And it has big implications for like tech, finance, and even how we think about being anonymous online.
Yeah, and what I find so interesting about this theory is that it goes deeper than just like surface level connections. It connects events and dates and even how people act online in a way that's like hard to ignore. It's not just coincidence.
Okay, so let's talk about these coincidences. So apparently there's some pretty interesting overlaps between Dorsey's life, his personal life, and like key moments in, the early days of Bitcoin.
Right, like for example, Bitcoin's very first transaction, it happened on January 11th, which is, get this, Dorsey's mother's birthday. And you want to know something else? Satoshi's last activity on the Bitcoin network, it matches up perfectly with Dorsey's father's birthday. March 5th. I mean, come on, what are the odds?
Okay, that's like crazy. But is there like more to this than just birthdays? I mean, it doesn't seem like enough to build a whole theory on just birthdays.
Well, it's not just birthdays. So remember when Satoshi joined that Bitcoin forum?
Uh-huh.
Well, it was on November 19th.
No way.
Jack Dorsey's birthday.
Wow. Okay, so we've got 3 birthdays that all like sync up with big Bitcoin events. That's definitely interesting. But like, are you convinced?
Well, it makes you think, but, we need to dig a little deeper. One thing that really stood out to me was the timestamps. On Bitcoin's original code, they consistently show 4 a.m., which is the exact same time that used to be on Dorsey's old Twitter profile. Now, if it were just one timestamp, you could maybe ignore it, but this is a pattern across the entire code base.
Wait, so we've got matching birthdays, specific times. It almost seems like someone's leaving clues on purpose, right?
Yeah, it's hard not to think that way, especially when you consider the location. So there was this hacker who claimed to have Satoshi's email, and he tried to, blackmail Satoshi by threatening to expose a connection to St. Louis. Guess what? St. Louis is Dorsey's birthplace.
Wait, there's a St. Louis connection. That's really specific. And wasn't there something about California, too?
Yeah, back in 2009, an IP address linked to Satoshi, it popped up in California, and Dorsey spends a lot of time at Twitter headquarters there.
So, like, is this all just a bunch of crazy coincidences? Or is there a chance that, like, Jack Dorsey and the Twitter guy is actually this mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto?
Well, it's definitely tempting, but let's not get carried away, We got to look at, like, the other side, too, the arguments against it.
Yeah, that's true. We can't just ignore, like, the evidence that doesn't fit, right? So what are some of the main arguments against Dorsey being Satoshi?
Well, one of the biggest criticisms has to do with, like, the philosophies of Bitcoin and Twitter, Like, Bitcoin's whole thing is being decentralized, resistant to censorship. But Twitter, especially with Dorsey in charge, has become known for, like, its content moderation policies.
Yeah, that does seem a little contradictory, I guess. So, like, would the person who made a currency designed to, operate outside the system really then lead a platform that's, I guess you could say, known for controlling what people can say online?
Exactly. And a lot of people who don't believe the theory, that's what they point to. And it's not just about, like, the philosophy either. There are ethical considerations.
Oh, right, like that other expert, the blockchain researcher, who pointed out the dangers of making that claim.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, accusing someone of being Satoshi without, really solid proof that could put the person and their family at risk. And we're not talking about just anyone, right? This is the creator of Bitcoin, someone with a ton of wealth and influence in the crypto world.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's easy to, like, forget about the real-life consequences. Speaking of real-life consequences, what about Dorsey himself? Like, how has he responded to all of this?
Well, he was asked directly in an interview a few years ago if he was Satoshi. And his answer was, well, let's just say it was a little cryptic.
Oh.
He said, no, and if I were, would I inform you?
Huh. Classic Dorsey, always leaving us guessing. So is he being, coy, or is that like a real denial? I guess if you have to add that to the list of unanswered questions. But this whole thing raises a bigger question for me. Like, how do you even go about figuring out who someone is when they've gone through all this trouble to be anonymous online?
That is the question, isn't it? We see it all the time. People trying to, like, unmag anonymous figures in tech, in politics, even art. It's a tricky thing.
So, like, what are some of the tactics they use, these, I guess you could say, digital detectives?
Well, sometimes it's analyzing like writing styles or comparing, how people code or tracking down like digital footprints all over the internet. And sometimes they'll try to link like financial transactions or travel records to a suspect.
So it's like, actually being a detective. But, like, for the online world?
Exactly. And in a case like Satoshi's, where they've been so careful about hiding their identity, it's even harder. I mean, think about it. Satoshi's stayed anonymous for like over a decade, even though so many people have tried to, figure out who they are.
That's kind of amazing, actually. It shows you, like, how powerful anonymity can be in the digital age. Even with all the technology we have and all the surveillance, some people can just stay completely hidden.
It really is. And it goes beyond just the technical stuff, too, It's like it taps into this human need for mystery, this fascination with the unknown, this idea that someone could, like, create something groundbreaking like Bitcoin and then just disappear.
I think you're right. It's not just, a tech mystery. It's a story that just captures the imagination. Whether Jack Dorsey's actually Satoshi or not, this whole thing has, like, shown us something much bigger.
Yeah, I agree. It's a story about how technology and identity are, changing how they relate to each other and how powerful speculation can be. It makes us realize that in this digital world, you might never really know who's behind the screen.
Right. It's not just about, like, who did it. It's like a commentary on how we deal with identity and anonymity online.
And that's what makes it so interesting. It's a story that's still unfolding, and we're all, kind of waiting to see what happens next.
So, okay, we've really gone deep into this theory about Jack Dorsey possibly being Satoshi Nakamoto. We've looked at, like, the arguments for it and against it, and we even talked about how hard it is to, like, unmask someone online, right? But before we go, let's recap, what we've talked about.
Yeah, good idea. So we started with the claim that Dorsey, the Twitter co-founder, right, might actually be the mysterious creator of Bitcoin, and this theory is built on a bunch of like weird coincidences that link Dorsey's personal life to big events in Bitcoin's early days.
Right, like those birthdays lining up with Bitcoin's first transaction and Satoshi's last activity, and those timestamps in the code that matched Dorsey's old Twitter profile. And even the location stuff with Dorsey's birthplace and Twitter's headquarters. It's a lot.
It is, but we also have to, be fair and look at the other side too. Like the biggest one being that Bitcoin and Twitter, they kind of have conflicting philosophies.
Yeah, you mean how Bitcoin is all about, no central control and no censorship, and Twitter, well, they've got all those content rules, especially with Dorsey running things.
Right, and it does seem kind of well, contradictory, doesn't it? And then there's the whole ethics thing about publicly accusing someone of being Satoshi without, like, real proof. That could be dangerous for the person and their family.
Totally.
And we can't forget Dorsey's own response when he was asked directly. It was pretty vague.
It really is a puzzle with a lot of pieces still missing. But even if we don't have a clear answer, this whole thing has made us think about some important stuff, right? Like online identity and being anonymous and, like, how much power speculation has online.
Absolutely. And it leaves us with one final question to, like, really think about. What if, just hypothetically, Dorsey really was revealed as Satoshi, like, tomorrow? What would that even mean?
Whoa, that's a good question. What do you think?
I mean, it would definitely shake things up, like for both tech and finance, right? On the one hand, it could make Bitcoin seem even more legit because, the creator is this big-time figure. But it could also make people worry about conflicts of interest because, Twitter has so much influence and Dorsey shapes their policies.
Like, crazy to even think about what that would do. We're talking about, like, two of the biggest things in the digital world, Bitcoin and Twitter. And they could, like, merge in a way no one saw coming.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean, the search for Satoshi is still going on. Maybe someday we'll know for sure. But for now, we just have to, like, think about the possibilities and what this whole story means.
And that's what we love to do, right? Explore these big, complicated topics. Dive into the unknown and hopefully give you something to think about, even after the episode's over. Will we ever know the truth about Satoshi Nakamoto? And does it even matter on the grand scheme of things? Those are questions for you to think about. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride.